Welcome back, everybody, to the Think and Grow Show with your host, Dr. Z.
And Professor P.
Dr. Z, you got a book in your lap there, I see.
I do have a book
Wait a
in
minute.
my lap.
Oh, okay. Yeah. What is it?
It's called Shining Brightly with Howard Brown.
All right, take it away. Give us the intro here. Tell us all about Howard.
So Howard is an author, speaker, podcaster, Silicon Valley entrepreneur, interfaith peacemaker, two-time stage 4 cancer survivor,
Woo!
and healthcare advocate. For more than 3 decades, Howard's business innovations, leadership principles, mentoring, and his resilience in beating cancer against long odds have made him a sought-after speaker and consultant for businesses, nonprofits, congregations, and community groups. Awesome. Well, congratulations, Howard, for writing your book. This is awesome. It's a big book.
Yeah, it's a big book, all right. Woo.
Yeah.
I had a big life.
I love it. Yeah, a big and powerful life. So why don't you start our audience off and tell us about researching your past in creating this memoir for us?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, Dr. Z and Professor P, thank you for having me. I'm so delighted to be on camera and on screen with you and sharing with your audience some nuggets of golden wisdom and some high energy today. Just thrilled. So I have to tell you, I am a very least likely published author. When my friend, David Crum, took me for coffee, I was in cancer treatment, and said, would you like to leave a legacy for your family, your daughter, and your wife? And I was like, no, that's daunting to me. I'm not a writer. You got to know your strengths. Grammar and punctuation are kind of optional. And he was like, well, go think about it. So I went home. I told my wife and daughter. They laughed at me. They were like, you're going to write a book? I was like, yeah, David asked me to write a short book. Maybe it's a Kindle 99 pager. I don't know. Anyhow, I called David back the next day and I said, David, I have one request. And he said, only one? He goes, most of our client authors have like 20. I said, just one. I said, if you will allow me to record on Zoom the most influential, important people in my life, I will actually write a book with you. The phone went dead silence for like 30 seconds. And he basically said, we've never done that. Remember, people bring their manuscript to us and we don't have one. I go, we got to create one. So he said, I'll get back to you. He called back and he said, we're going to have to be very diligent. We're going to meet every Wednesday for 2 hours. You've got to have a schedule to invite the guests. He goes, it's going to take a year. Well, it took 3. Well, I have now met with David, except for 2 Wednesdays, 278 or more Zoom sessions. And we interviewed 158 of the most important people in my life and influence. And it was the coolest thing ever to walk back my life. It was cathartic. It was healthy. It was so cool. It's unbelievable. And the only 2 people I didn't get to, really interview, but we had lots of information, was my great-grandmother, Bubby Bertha Budish, in chapter 1, and my great-grandfather, my dad's side, Papa Leo, on chapter 2. Everyone else came into these Zoom rooms. Oh my God. It's like old home week with people like my friends from the neighborhood, my camp counselors at age 12, my doctors from 30 years ago, family recovering the family memories of trips and fighting about food and then whose cooking was better. And it was incredible. It was so incredible that I did this, and it was fun, but you had to be dedicated. We had to be intentional. We have so much B-roll and so much information. We had to make decisions on what goes into the book. And I was very steadfast that it would be 18 chapters, 360 pages, 62 pictures. And I have to tell you that I kind of broke the mold a little bit because I never published a book. So David says, I need 5 to 7 endorsements. I said, David, I have 100. And he said, we've never had a book before. And I was like, well, I said, let's go through them all and let's let's basically pick the ones. I have 65 endorsements that lead the book off called A Chorus of Praise, because I'm not traditional. The other thing is that I was
Yeah.
very collaborative with this famous artist called Rick Nees on the book cover. So his first book covers, he had sunglasses, and I go, this isn't a surfing book. This is a fairly serious book that's going to teach life lessons of resiliency and hope. So if you show the book cover again, it's basically, or I can do it. It's basically my energy, okay, shining brightly, and the bird that they originally picked, okay, was a phoenix, and to rise of the phoenix, right? I beat cancer twice.
Yeah.
I did not like the phoenix.
Right.
It was not a good looking bird to me. We changed it to a dove, and a light bulb,
Okay.
and it's very much a 3D effect, so that peace, love, and hope is illuminated to shine the light
Yeah.
for people to be able to shine their light, and me shining my light to them and receiving their light back. It's a very provocative book cover, and it's been entered into some book cover contests, and so I'm waiting to hear back.
Wow.
And already been named most inspirational book by the International Impact Book Awards. So that's very quick for a book that just launched September 27th to receive a book award. But I'm very proud of it. It's a legacy, and I leave it for everyone else to basically be inspired by it. And I'm getting tremendous feedback. And listen, most authors sell about 200 books in a lifetime. I've been very blessed, and I work at it. 200 books a month. I've sold over 1,500 copies, hard copy, soft copy, and Kindle. Privately for my speaking engagements, and on the big one, Amazon and Barnes and Noble and Walmart and Target and all that stuff. So I take it seriously.
That doesn't surprise me. You're a salesperson, right?
Exactly. You got to.
You're a salesperson. That doesn't surprise me.
They don't sell themselves, Dr. Z and Professor P. You got to, you want to collect that.
Now talk about the light. Talk more about that light. Like, why was light so powerful and prominent, and to actually create that 3D effect? Like when you held your book up, I could see the light. I could see the light from the bulb. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, all right. I appreciate that. So listen, when you get a stage 4 cancer diagnosis, not once, but lightning struck again twice in your life, I had every reason to go into darkness. Okay. And darkness actually is not a great place to be hanging out. Bad things can happen. Malaise can happen. Depression can happen. Addiction can happen. Anger can happen. There's mostly negative stuff that hangs out in the darkness. Okay. Now, I actually, the light came from the ability, and it's in scripture, by the way, as well. Not that I'm the most religious guy, but it's in scripture. And so I'm going to read to you why this light happened, and the truth that came out of this is that each one of us has their own special light. We all shine more brightly when we share our light together. So think about a flashlight, and you actually put 10 or 20 flashlights together. We shine more brightly.
Yeah.
I found my healing and resiliency to get out of bed each day, okay, that made it strong enough for me to overcome these impossible odds by letting the light of others lift me up. And that's truth. And so as our joined light circles the world, we illuminate, and we can celebrate our diversity and come together for positive change and goodness. And so that is basically the lesson of living and getting that darkness of 2-time cancer diagnosis. But we all get knocked down in life, in health, in business, in family, in relationships. The key, and this is my keynote speech that I do all over the world, is to get back up again. We have to get back up again.
Right, because if you live long enough, Howard, some stuff is going to happen to you, right? I found that out myself.
Well, as they said on the sticker and in Forrest Gump, S happens, right? It's a family show.
Right.
S happens.
Right. I want to mention real quick, I'm jumping towards the back of the book here, page 311, Vincent de Jong, who lives in the Netherlands. It's amazing that you connected with somebody from halfway around the world. And then Kim Sully, right? You can talk about those. But I love what I highlighted below that. It says 50% of healing from this disease is attitude.
So they touched my heart. So what happened is that I found Vincent on an app called Belong. It's a really wonderful app, and he said you need to come to this. Join me on Facebook and come to this place called Colon Town. Um, he's now 7 years survivor. He was 5 steps ahead of me, and he brought me to a place where I actually got to talk and interact with other cancer patients that had the cancer spread at metastatic stage 4 cancer spread to their liver and their peritoneum, their stomach lining, which is a very difficult place for the doctors to see it and cure it. And Kim and Vincent became my cancer whisperers. These are people that I could call at 2 a.m. when I'm freaking out. And I didn't share that too much publicly, but I had lots of bouts of anxiety and anger, and they got me through it. And so what they did was they were my mentors, and I call that cancer whispering. And then I cancer whisper for others that are 5 steps behind me, and we pass the torch on. And I have to tell you that attitude is really important because it affects your mental toughness. And your mental toughness is like like a muscle. You can get weaker or it can get stronger. And I worked hard at building up my mental toughness, aka resiliency, to be able to get out of bed some days, take another step forward, go a little further on my walk. Okay. And do what I had to do to
take that one
deal
bite,
with it.
right? You mentioned taking that one bite.
Well, I wasn't eating. So Kim would call me and basically force me to take a bite of egg and some cheese and take another bite because my nutrition was down after this massive surgery that I had. And she's a nurse by trade. So she would call Lisa and she'd put him on the phone. Put him on the phone. Lisa would get frustrated. He's not eating. And nutrition is important. It's nutrition, hydration, and sleeping are part of the healing process for all of us. You don't have to have cancer for that. So for sure. So yes, they were part of my team. Okay. And I in the digital world for cancer too, I actually had an enormous team sending me prayers, sending me jokes. And I took their energy, their vibration, and their light in to be able to get me to step forward.
So I want to conclude. On the next page, you say, no one knows what you're going through like someone who has gone through it. And that's what you're doing. You're taking that, paying it forward, which is what they did with you, right? So the listeners don't know this, that they went through it themselves, which is a superpower because they were able to, they were already walked in the shoes that you're walking in currently. And now you're doing that, paying that forward, right? I love that.
And is that one of the major... and that one of the major drivers of you even writing your book is to shine that light even more brightly to help others.
I will tell you this, that stage 4 cancer world, we live with death all the time, and it's the disease burden is too great and God is calling them to heaven. Well, I've been able to be blessed, lucky, and grateful. I look in the mirror and say that every single day that I still get to get life extension. And I didn't know if I was going to see my daughter graduate high school. I didn't know if I was going to see her graduate college, and she's done both of those things. And I'm putting it out there. I am going to walk her down the aisle and hopefully become a grandpa one day. All right. I plan on living a longer time. Now, everyone, I don't know, but if this disease will come back, I don't think so. I'm going to approaching 4 years of no evidence of disease in September. And every day and every scan and everything's a blessing. And so I treat it that way. And that's how you live an intentional life. And so the book is really meant to share with people that when you get absolutely stopped in your tracks, absolute devastation, that you still have a purpose and you still can move forward, even though you don't know what the future is going to bring, because none of us know what the future is going to bring. And so
now, how are you mentioning? Sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, you mentioned your daughter. And so I love, so in 1989, you were age 23. That's when you had your first major curveball. So tell us about the first cancer diagnosis, the stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and then be sure to mention about your daughter.
Okay. Great story.
Well, all right. So there's 3 miracles. We're going to talk about the first one. So I'm 23 years old.
Yeah.
And I end up finding a pink spot on my cheekbone, left cheekbone, on the Pennsylvania Turnpike
Mhm.
driving to Dayton, Ohio in the summer, end of the summer of 1989. All right, remember, I stopped on the side of the road and told my mom I noticed something there. I used a payphone. All right, remember what those are? So I used a payphone,
Yeah.
and she said, "Okay, you should be okay. Hopefully, it's just a bug bite or something." Well, this little pink spot started to grow a little bit. I wore glasses at the time, and
Yeah.
it started to make my glasses crooked. My mom came out a week later to set up my apartment in Dayton, Ohio, and buy sheets and dishes, stuff like you might need. And she said, "You know what? That doesn't, it's getting a little bigger." But we didn't know anybody in Dayton. I didn't have any doctors. I could ask people at work, but I was busy and I was traveling. But I happened to travel back to
Yeah.
Boston, and I came in the weekend before. I was speaking at a banking conference on that following Monday, and my dad kind of played a joke on me. He's like, "Well, you normally go out to eat and then go to breakfast and go play tennis or go jogging, whatever it is." He took me to the community hospital, and they said it was a cyst and take some antibiotic and you'll be fine. So I didn't worry about it, but it was getting bigger. I
Mhm.
went and did my speech, kicked butt, did great, and I came back home to eat with my parents before flying out that evening. And my dad took me back to that hospital. They ended up taking
Mm.
a biopsy, and then they actually called me back in and took another biopsy. And then the waiting game happened. We didn't know what was going on. Well, I flew out and I kind of like did my thing, but this little lump was
Yeah.
getting bigger. I got back. I got called
Mhm.
back to Boston a week or two later, or 3 weeks later. My parents were freaking out because we had no communication of what was going on. I get back to this community hospital. There's 7 doctors waiting for me. 7, and they're like,
Wow.
"You have a 2 o'clock appointment at Dana Farber Cancer Institute." I was like, "Why?
Yeah.
I feel fine."
Yeah.
And that was
Yeah.
about a 40-minute drive into Boston. We went, and I showed up at the cancer hospital. I still didn't believe why I was there. I was immediate denial,
Yeah.
deer in the headlights, right? I get in there, they do tests,
Mhm.
and I have to tell you, I looked in the waiting room. It's all old people. I'm 23 years old, so I went down to the
Yeah.
pediatric side called the Jimmy Fund, and I hung out with the kids, that were 5 years old and bald. They were playing games and eating candy. And then did
Mhm.
more tests, and I get called into this Dr. George Canaris' office, who was basically invented chemotherapy for blood cancers, and this young Dr. Eric Rubin, a Harvard fellow. My parents are sitting to my left
Mhm.
behind me, and Dr. Canaris says, "Howard, you're a young man. You have stage 4 T cell non Hodgkin's lymphoma, complete blood cancer of your lymphatic system. It's very aggressive. We're going to try to pound it out. You're young. We're going to throw the kitchen sink of chemotherapy at you." And I didn't hear another word. I didn't hear another word. It was blah
Yeah.
blah 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 blah. Charlie Brown. I looked up at Dr. Rubin. I was like, "What's he talking about?" And I look back. My mom is bawling her eyes out. My dad is a statue, frozen. And we talked a little
Yeah.
longer, and they said, "You'll come back tomorrow for more tests, and on Thursday we start chemotherapy." I was
Yeah.
like,
You're like, "You sure you got the right guy?" Right?
"Yeah."
Total
I was like,
shock.
I play basketball and I can play 2 hours. I go to the gym. I'm in great shape. Quite frankly, I'm not sure
Yeah.
even what you're talking about. I feel fine except for this, marker that came out. And thank God it did, because if it didn't, I just would have eventually died, because it would have grown, so
Right.
severely and very quickly. So I get a prognosis at age 23 and a half of 3 to 6 months to live. Now, no one wants to tell you a
Wow.
timeline. Only God knows that. But we go home that night. We invite my sister, my twin, who's 5 minutes older,
Mhm.
and we basically sit at the kitchen table. We cry a lot. My dad ran to the library and got a book
Mhm.
on cancer. It's 1989. There are no cell phones. The internet's not
Yeah.
there yet, and computer use was just starting. And we were learning. I went
Right.
back the next day. I'm still a deer in the headlights. I'm still in denial. It hasn't hit me yet. They do more
Mhm.
testing. And then that Thursday, I can't sleep. I'm like, I don't even know what an infusion is, right? I can't look it up on the
Yeah.
internet. I didn't realize that it was a needle in my vein. I get there and they tell me, they take your blood. And then after 2 hours,
Mhm.
Dr. Rubin comes out and he goes, "We're not doing chemo today. Your liver function is too high. It's unsafe." I go, "You
Yeah.
just told me I have 3 to 6 months to live. What are you talking about? We got to get moving here." He said, "Nope, you're doing a field trip to the cryogenic center." I go, "Cryo what?
Yeah.
What is that? I don't even know what it is." I mean, he said, "It's the sperm bank. You go leave a sample." He goes, "You might relax you." So I went and did it. and forgot about it, except for paying the bill. I forgot about it. All right,
Yeah.
let's move forward to I had lots of bad news. I was failing all the chemo cocktails, but one piece of good news.
Yeah.
In February of 1990, my twin sister, she tested an exact 100% called HLA match for bone marrow transplant. Now, it was fairly new back then, and that was the piece of good
Yeah.
news. And then they had to get me ready for that. And I spent a lot of time in the hospital. I was doing tons of blood transfusions and platelet transfusions because I was immune compromised. The
Yeah.
lymphoma and leukemias eat away at your white cells that actually cure you and are your defense mechanism. Your platelets are your clotting and your healing. And I needed those transfusions, or else I felt very weak. I was losing weight. My nutrition wasn't great. They were feeding me
Yeah.
what's called TPN, which is like a protein shake through your veins. And I spent a lot of time in the hospital, and I was very susceptible to viruses, cold. So I wore gloves, I wore a mask, and my
Mm.
mom kept the house very clean. And I had friends
Yeah.
over, but they also had to wear masks and gloves. I got a taste of COVID, much earlier, and so moved the clock forward to May 24th of 1990. A week before that, I went into the hospital into isolation. Think Boy in the
Mhm.
Bubble, John Travolta movie with no
Yeah.
immune system. And
Yeah.
they basically gave me chemotherapy every day, and they gave me twice daily, 20 minutes, full body irradiation. Really
Mhm.
harsh stuff. I was sleeping most of the time, but feeling awful. On May
Yeah.
24th, my sister went in 6 in the morning. They extracted her bone marrow out of her hip bones, and she was fine. It's a little sore. Did aerobics a few days later. They cleaned it out, and then inside at 5 in the afternoon, inside they gave me this bag, this infusion bag that I'm holding up on screen
Yep.
right now. This is the
Yep.
bag of life. All right. This had her
Yep.
bone marrow
No,
inside of it. Why I
essentially,
took it?
she
Yeah.
is your lifeline, your phone a friend. I wanted to get that in there.
All right. She
Right?
was my phone a friend. Exactly. So listen,
Yeah.
it's a 1 in 25,000 chance that she would be an exact match. All right. That's the lottery. That's miracle number one. All right. They told me, and I signed
Right.
paperwork that when you transfer an organ or blood into someone else, it could kill you right away. I mean,
Yeah.
literally, they were watching for
Wow.
that. Or it could kill you over time quickly, or potentially
Mhm.
it could grow and grow back. Now, it can cause lots of side effects called graft versus host disease, but it could also overtake the malignancy in my body and reset my immune system by me adopting my sister's immune system. So I joke with my sisters that, one time in the month I can get my little lady visitor called my period, right? I'm joking, but it's possible. But I am so blessed to have a twin sister, because getting a
Right.
match is 1 in 24,000 with a cheek swab. So be the match or gift of life. I recommend that people swabbing to do that, because
Yeah.
you can save a person's life if you're a match. And so after that, I spent 34 days in isolation and watched my immune system grow via blood tests.
Nice.
And they released me to the general floor. And then I did a clinical trial of interleukin 2, which strengthened my natural killer cells. And I
Mhm.
was finished with treatment, and I went through a whole recovery process called stepping stones. And in December, I got off of all treatment. I went what's called surveillance, quarterly surveillance of gallium scans and CAT
Mhm.
scans and PET scans and blood tests. And what was I supposed to do? I'm
Yeah.
basically 20, going to be 25 years old soon, but I ended up moving to Florida. I
Yeah.
didn't want the Boston winter. My friend was getting divorced, David Herman, and I went to his house, and my two friends from high school came and babysat me, and we golfed, played basketball, we hiked, we went to the Super Bowl. We basically started living again. I was still sleeping quite a bit, and I built myself back
Yeah.
up. And then I went to Hawaii on the trip for NCR Corporation that I missed to Mexico the year before, and I had
Mhm.
lunch with the CEO and the president of NCR Corporation. They said, "Howard, when can you come back? When can the doctor give you approval?" And I said, "I want warm weather.
Yeah.
I don't. I want warm weather. I also living with mom and dad. They were a little smothering because they're trying to protect me. I wanted my freedom back, so
Right.
they gave me either a job in Atlanta or LA. I chose LA. I wanted the beach. I wanted the
Mhm.
Pacific Ocean. I wanted the breeze. I wanted to play basketball all year round, outdoors.
Yeah.
And I moved
Yeah.
to Los Angeles in May of 1991. 135 pounds and bald, to rebuild my life again.
Wow.
So the reason that
Wow.
story is so important, okay, is because I basically forgot about the sperm banking except for the bill that came in. And
Number
I'm
2,
getting to
right?
yeah, I'm coming there. So, but before I want to tell you that,
Sorry.
I had to work on my mental toughness, my emotional state, my physical well-being. My career was getting back on track, and I found my happy place, basketball, which is part of my healing. But the other element that I
Yeah.
added was community service. I started to dig in and
Mm.
balance my life out by
Yeah.
doing lots of community service. And I met my lovely wife, Lisa, through the Jewish Community Federation Leadership Program. I became a Jewish big brother to a young 10-year-old named Ian.
Mhm.
And I was raising funds and doing food drives for people in need. I was balancing out my life.
Mm.
Now, I'd done that before, but I did it much more intentionally and with much more intensity. And Lisa was really my driving force for that. Got married July of '94, overlooking the Pacific Ocean. It was a Hollywood wedding, and I started my startup
Wow.
career, and things were going well. I got my life back, but
Yeah.
I moved up to Silicon Valley, and quite frankly, listen, you fall off the Apple truck. I was a workaholic. I did that too much.
Yeah.
I'm a human. It's natural. But I was still mixing in the community service. I moved to Silicon Valley, and the intensity and the speed was even greater. And I was able, and fortunate to
Mm.
take companies public and do a lot more philanthropy, and do my
Yeah.
big brother stuff. But my sister called me and said, I'm moving to Michigan. And she said,
Mhm.
I was like, well, okay, we're going to move there. But before I get there, we called for the sperm. But Lisa gave me an ultimatum that I had to be home for dinner more. So we called for
Yeah.
that sperm. 11 years later, they took out the best ones, defrosted them, injected them into 8 eggs. 4 of those, they removed 4 of those eggs were put in there, and one of them became our miracle daughter, Emily. Our frozen kidsicle was born. How amazing is that?
Awesome.
How amazing is that? Come on. I was blessed to have a daughter.
Incredible.
I was blessed to have my
Yeah.
own daughter, miracle number 2. It's friggin' incredible. So when she
Right.
was 4, the .com stuff era had kind of phased out. It's very expensive to live there. We had no family. We had a great network of friends, but we moved to Michigan, where
Mhm.
Lisa is from. My sister moved with her 3 kids. We moved with Emily. Lisa's sister Beth has 2 sons. They're all the same age, 4 to 6 years old. And we raised the family,
Mhm.
got the band back together in Michigan. It was friggin'
Nice.
awesome. My in-laws lived here. My mom came out every month to see the grandkids, my dad. It was
Mhm.
awesome, really great. And so I got my life back. 26 years,
Yeah.
I was good, healthy. Business is going
Mhm.
good. My startups were going great, my platforms. And then I went in for my 50-year-old physical. And at the 50-year-old
Yeah.
physical,
Cruising along.
screening age for colorectal cancer was 50, paid by insurance. Time to get a colonoscopy. So they scheduled April. I think
Yeah.
I was sick. I rescheduled for June 4th of 2016. I'm feeling pretty good. I wake up. Lisa has my
Mhm.
hand, my left hand. I look up. I actually know the doctor, and I said, Dr. Phil, everything's cool, right? All good? He looked at me with serious eyes and goes,
Yeah.
no, I found something. And when I
Yeah.
find something, it's usually bad news. Well, pathology
Yeah.
10 days later told me that I had stage 3 colon cancer, and I had
Wow.
an 8.5 centimeter tumor that took 10 years to grow. If I would have been screened at age 40, I might not have had it, or would have had stage 1. And the
Yeah.
earlier you catch it, the better chances you have. Um, I will tell you this, that mostly asymptomatic. Blood cancer is tricky. Colon cancer is tricky because usually blood in the stool is the big tell. And I'll use this time right now. Go get screened. Okay. During COVID, no one went to the doctor, right? Get your mammogram. Go
Mhm.
get your prostate checked. Go get your cardio checked. Go to the dentist. Go get your colonoscopy. Okay. If you get screened, you have a much better chance. And unfortunately, there's going to be 155,000 diagnoses of colorectal cancer. Much younger. It's not grandpa and grandma's disease. Younger people are getting it. 52,000 deaths this year, and it's a horrible thing.
Yeah.
It's the number 2 killer after lung cancer. So go
So
get
Howard,
screened.
let me jump in real quick.
Please.
You mentioned asymptomatic. For the listeners out there, can you tell our listeners and viewers what you mean when you say asymptomatic, for those that may not know?
So so asymptomatic means that you didn't have any symptoms or tells, okay?
Yeah.
That did I have stomach bloating? Did I have irritable bowel syndrome? Did I have blood in my stool? Did I have a blockage?
Yeah.
Was I gaining weight? Was I losing weight? I had no reason to go to the doctor to check anything out
Yeah.
besides going to a colonoscopy.
Mhm.
That's the case. So
Okay.
by that's no
And it's
symptoms.
8 centimeter tumor with no symptoms.
Yeah, that's
So
incredible.
an 8.5 centimeter
Yeah.
tumor off of a polyp grown in your intestine takes 8 to 10 years to grow that big. It's a big one.
Yeah.
And so 10 days later, I had surgery called a hemicolectomy, where they removed 13.5 inches of my colon plus lymph nodes and margins.
Mhm.
They installed a chemo port, which I still have today for surveillance. And I did
Mhm.
chemotherapy about a month and a half later, because I basically wanted to go to Emily's national championship soccer tournament in Dallas.
Yeah.
And right a day after coming home for that, I started chemotherapy again, and I was back in the chair, back in the infusion room, getting 6 hours of slow drip chemo to try to basically cure that. And the side effects were horrible, awful, awful,
Ugh.
awful. And unfortunately, it didn't work. By
Yeah.
the time I completed 12 cycles, I was bald again, and I was not that matter to wear a cap, but I had a CAT scan, and the cancer had spread outside of what's called the where they cut and stitch the colon back together. By the way, men have 6 to 8 colons. It's like a rubber band. Women have about 4 to 6 inches, 4 to 6 feet of colon in there. It's really, it's how your digestive system processes and gets the
Mhm.
nutrients out of the foods that we eat back into the
Mhm.
bloodstream. And unfortunately, it didn't work. I had another surgery of 10 inches of colon, and then I did a clinical trial, and a year later, July of 2017, the cancer spread to my liver, my stomach lining called the
Yeah.
peritoneum momentum, and my bowel, and then another 3 to 6 months to live. And right after that
Wow.
is when I met Kim
Again.
Sully and Vincent.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So let's go to the miracle number
What
3,
is
though.
the yeah, what was it? I don't remember the term. Crash chemo. What was the term? Do you think that, like, Hail Mary chemo, I'm gonna call it? You got a name for it. Tell me what it
I
is.
did.
Do you
So
think that was, like, really what saved you?
yes. So I failed lots of chemotherapies. The second line chemotherapy gave me a little regression or shrinkage, just
Mhm.
like George Costanza shrinkage on Seinfeld. But it's really important. Progression is bad. Stability is okay, but regression means that there's something working. So I got a little regression. For that, you get more chemo cycles. And I started to meet with these doctors that were oncology surgeons. And what they did, there was
Mhm.
a protocol called cytoreduction hyperinterferon chemotherapy. It's called CRS HIPEC. And on YouTube, there's a
Mhm.
video of HIPEC. It's an animation video. It's not gory. But what they do is they cut you from chest plate down to pubic bone. They open you up, and with microscopic
Wow.
glasses, they actually cut out all the live and dead chemo cells. Sometimes they take your gallbladder. Sometimes they take your appendix. They take your stomach lining out. They shave my liver 12%. It's a massive mother of all surgeries, 13 and a half hours. And I
Wow.
woke up in the ICU pressing the morphine drip button. And they also pour hot chemotherapy agent in you, seal
Ooh.
you up, and
Yeah.
spin you around like a rotisserie chicken, so that chemo can get
Wow.
into the cells and into the lining, and kill microcell chemotherapy. Now, it doesn't work for everybody. There is a relapse rate. Right now, I will tell you definitively that is what actually got me to no evidence of disease and cancer free.
Mhm.
But it took them a year and a half, because there was so many hot spots and scar tissue from the surgery, they couldn't tell what was an area of concern or not. So on September
Yeah.
20th of 1919, I got a CAT scan that said the words, "No evidence of disease at this time." That was the hallelujah, man. That was the
Yeah.
hallelujah. First time in writing by a
Wow.
radiologist that told me that I didn't have any disease burden inside of me.
Wow. Wow.
So, I mean, right. So I've lived a little bit, right? So miracle 1, twin sister, bone marrow transplant. Miracle 2,
Yep.
frozen sperm, 11 years. Emily, frozen kidsicle, miracle
Yeah.
girl. Miracle 3, hot chemo in the abdomen after a massive surgery. Okay, has gotten me back and allowed me to actually rebuild Humpty Dumpty, version 3.0 again. And and do it all over again, and be able allowed to, live my life and build my shining brightly movement.
Wow. That's incredible.
That's just so amazing. And would you say that it is the community that really keeps you going? Because after so many miracles, right? But then so many setbacks and pain and
Yeah.
just going through all these treatments, it knocks some part of you. It takes some part of you, right? What allows you to rise up, be that shining brightly dove, would you say?
Well, some people would say, in the faith space, would say that God has a plan for me. Okay,
Yes,
that's one
absolutely.
possible outcome. It could be true. I hope it's true. But the other one is that um, I want to be able to make sure that I am living this life that I can actually bring inspiration to others, because I have to tell you, when in my time of need, and this is a major lesson from the book and from cancer, it's not what you actually can get in this world, it's what you can give.
Yeah.
Okay. And other people in my time of need gave to us so generously their light, and that lifted me up. I have a very big network around the world, all different faiths. And I mean, at worst, they gave me a smile or a prayer, right? People ran a GoFundMe for me. I actually had to learn
Mhm.
how to accept help. I needed the team to help me win this battle. Okay. Cancer,
Yeah.
life, business, it's a team sport. And I built one hell of a team around me.
Yeah,
That
you
was the key.
did.
That was the key. Now, individually, you had asked me off camera the 3 keys to resiliency. Okay. The keys to resiliency are to make sure that you lift yourself up. Lots of self
Mhm.
care, lots of self love. And I learned how to be
Mhm.
selfish, and I learned how to receive. Okay. Because that's what I
Yeah.
needed to do. It wasn't about me helping others during these cancer times. I actually needed the help, and I needed to be able to take that in. And now I want to pay that forward every single day and pay that back anonymously, diligently,
Yeah.
definitively, and that's really important. And also included in that self care, self love is eating right, sleeping right, exercising right,
Yep.
and making sure that I
Yeah.
am not out of balance. And so when you do that, and it's in the book, right? The principles are: lift yourself up, and then go
Mhm.
lift others. Okay.
Right.
And then we join hands and become this force multiplier for good and positive change. That's how we shine brightly. That's a good life. And you had asked me one other
Yeah.
thing, Dr. Z, is that, where did I learn this? How did this get installed in my DNA? Well, it's in chapter
Yeah.
1 of the book. Bubby Bertha Budish, who lived in a mud floor hut on a farm in Lithuania. And because the Tsar was coming
Wow.
to collect the boys for the army, had to get to Europe. Okay, didn't get over on the a boat to Ellis Island, took the boat to Canada because she had trachoma. As a 16-year-old girl, she lived
Mhm.
alone for a year and a half in Belgium, learned Flemish, worked in a sewing factory, was a nanny. Okay. At 5 years old, she
Mhm.
took my sister and I out to, actually, because she was an Orthodox Jewish woman. And I found a quarter on the curb, and I said, I'm going to keep this and buy candy. And she said, no, you're not. She goes, you're going to give
Mhm.
that
Mm.
money to charity and to people in need. That's God's money. Found money is God's money. And in our
Yeah.
family, that is the rule. You find a $20 bill, it goes to charity. So she spoke 3 things. Okay. And the first thing she said,
Mhm.
you will learn chesed. Chesed is Hebrew for the word living a life of loving kindness. And she repeated that
Mhm.
every
Mm.
time we saw her. Okay. She lived till 101. I was blessed to have her a long time
Wow.
in our lives, and she was a really
Yeah.
good cook. Oh my God, she was amazing. And so the second thing is, she said, "You will know tzedakah. Tzedakah is the justice of giving your time,
Mm.
money,
Mhm.
and resources to those in need." Okay. And the last thing
Mhm.
she said, "You will live a life of tikkun olam." Tikkun olam is repairing yourself and others in a broken world. That is shining brightly. I since age 5, that has been drilled into me and my sister, and other religions do the same in other ways in Jewish families. That's my
Yeah.
DNA. That's my DNA, and my DNA
Yeah.
came out in the book, right? And that's the point of a good life.
So, yeah. So Bubby sets the foundation. The thing I want to know, and maybe you've already answered it with what you just told us, but at 23, talk about the whole from where did so I love the quote, a winner never quits and a quitter never wins, right? So how did you develop this mindset of never giving up, right? Because clearly if you'd have gave up, you'd have been a goner. I clearly see that from having read your book. So talk about that.
Right. So I want to dedicate that to team sports and me being a point guard in the basketball court, the coach and the floor general.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Basketball takes 5 players. You need all 5 players playing in deep chemistry, okay, and synchronization.
Mhm.
And I was the floor leader, and I have to
Mhm.
tell you that I wasn't the most athletic, but I was one of the smartest and the
Mhm.
and the person that would dive for a loose ball out of bounds on the court, a hustler. And that
Yep.
competitive fire from team sports translated to me into business. Okay.
Mhm.
And that
Mhm.
you don't win them all that way, but boy, you go down fighting when you play team sports.
Yeah.
I am super
Yep.
competitive in
Okay.
everything that I do. I want to win, but I know that you can't win all
Yeah.
the time. And when you lose, you have to understand, what did you learn from losing? And there's lessons. Failure is a teacher.
Mhm.
And so I think that's the
Yeah.
answer.
Well, along with that bulldog determinedness, can you talk a little bit about Silicon Valley and getting out there and the hustle and the moving forward in that? Because I'm sure.
Sure.
And how did that affect your life, your marriage, your everything?
Well, it started, you asked a question before off camera about, I went to Connecticut College to play basketball. It was 70% women at the time. It's
Mhm.
in New London, Connecticut. It's a fabulous sub Ivy League school. It's great. Bad choice for me.
Mhm.
I just didn't fit there. I didn't fit there.
Yeah.
I also wasn't disciplined enough to put in the work, and I got mono, and I probably partied too much. My dad, I come home that summer. My
Yeah.
grade point average is not great. He goes, you got into some business schools. Go take some summer classes at Babson, and I did. It was really smart.
Mhm.
That was sage advice, and I got
Yeah.
A+. And in my general management class in the second part of the summer, the dean of the grad school, Marilyn Snyder, was teaching, and she says, do you go here? I go, no, I go to Connecticut College. I'm just taking summer classes. And she goes, Connecticut College, you don't belong there. You belong here. And I go, yeah, probably too late to transfer in, for the fall. She goes, transfer in the winter. And guess what? I'll write you a recommendation. Recommendation from the dean of the grad
Nice.
school will help. She goes, but you have to go get better grades in one semester down at
Yeah.
Connecticut College. That's your job. I
Yeah.
have to tell you, every time I see her, I give her a hug and I thank her for seeing something within me, okay, to say that I was in
Yeah.
the wrong place and to put me on the right path. I excelled at Babson. It was my place. That was the place for me because it's the number one
Mhm.
school for entrepreneurship in the world, 30 straight years. And I maximized my effort there. So my dad sending me to summer school and Professor and Dean Marilyn Snyder, you have to actually, and that was my first real mentor that believed in me and set me on the right course. And so that's why I
Nice.
even write in the book, mentorship is leadership. And there's a chapter on my
Yeah.
mentors. And so through that and my career going into computers and technology led me to Silicon Valley.
Mhm.
Now, Dr. Z, I have to tell you, Silicon Valley is not a very kind place. It is the kind of a birthplace of innovation and the heartbeat of technology, although there's lots of heartbeats of technology. It is a dog eat dog world. You are sprinting.
And you're
And you
wearing
look,
milk bone underwear.
yep, I had that too. And they'll eat that for lunch. So there are power breakfasts and power meals and power players, and people are handing out odd gobs of money off of a business plan. And this is now where the end of the 90s, where 2 + 2 = 200, and we're basically in Web 1.0 world, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I move up there. I'm basically had a great success in audio, video, and changing the world from analog to digital in the television and the networking business, as far as cable and TV news, and great run there with a company called Avid Technology, which still exists today. And I got tapped on the shoulder by a Silicon Valley venture capitalist named Ann Wimblad. She said, "I want you to do what you did for video to do for audio." Went to a company called Liquid Audio. Raised a ton of money. But in 1997, we were listening to cassette tapes and Sony Walkman. Digital was just starting.
Yeah.
We were too early. We raised $238 million over an IPO and a secondary offering, and the investors got rich, but we really never went to market because it took until 2005 or 6 to Steve Jobs to convince record companies that you could sell more music at 99 cents a song, and he invented a device called the iPod to play music.
Right.
And we were too early in 97 for that. So that's a failing forward moment, lesson learned. I went on to another company in the web hosting space now called cloud computing, and we took it public, and our valuation went from basically, nothing, $14 a share, to $330 a share in March of 2000. And then the bubble burst. I mean, it was unrealistic. I mean, it's really these bubbles, and I'm really worried that AI is the next bubble. I mean, it could be. We go into these bubbles of non-reality. Cryptocurrency had their bubble, and it's still out there and got cut. Look at all the stuff that happened there. So we get the shiny syndrome, and Silicon Valley my life was out of whack, Dr. Z. I'm working 20 hours a week. The work became more important than family, more important than community service, more important than basketball. And Lisa set me straight. And that's when we called for Emily's frozen sperm. I got off the bus. I started my own platforms. I built platforms for the world's largest social network for faith and religion. But I worked at my own schedule, my own time, and I got my balance back. But I'll tell you, my experiences.
You got the wake up call.
The
Lisa
pace,
gave you the wake up call, right? Would you say?
100%. Thank God. Right. Again, she was my mentor. She lived it. And when you're not home for dinner, but 8 times a month, she was right. So Silicon Valley can be wonderful, but it's a tough, fast-paced living. And those stock options, if used right for philanthropy, are wonderful. And majority of startups fail. Okay. And the funding is not diverse. It doesn't go to women. It doesn't go to minorities. It's still today. We've got so much more to do. And Babson has been just that shining light for me as a trustee, as a leader of their alumni effort worldwide. We have 45,000 alums in 127 countries. Okay. And entrepreneurship's a team sport. You keep hearing me repeat that. Big teams win, not individuals, right? Not individuals. And teams score touchdowns together. And so I've learned a lot.
Teams
and
yeah,
absolutely. And it works for nonprofits too, and it works for them and raising funds, to serve their whatever their need is and things like that. So I've learned a lot, and now I'm sage 57. I'm much smarter than my younger self, much more disciplined, much more intentional.
Well, wow. Unfortunately, Howard, we're going to have to cut it there.
Oh, no.
What we're going to do, though, is we're getting ready to kick off a new segment. We've got like 5 segments currently, but we're going to create it. We're adding another one, the self-care. We haven't named it. It's going to be self-care something segment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or just self-care, our self-care segment. And we would love to have you back on the show for that, because we can talk all day. We can do a whole segment about your experience out there on the West Coast and Silicon Valley and all of that. And then, man, that'd be a
Well, what
great
I'd like
place
you to do
jump
is
off
to
talk.
Yeah, consider calling it the self-love segment. Self-care is only a part of self-love. So I'd like you to consider that.
We'll
All
take
right,
it
we
under
will take it under
consideration.
All
consideration.
right. All right. Well, that's good.
So we have we're kicking everything off with self care. We have a self care secrets Facebook group, so it'll probably be
Perfect.
self care something. Maybe it'll be
All
self care
right. Well,
secrets,
that's okay.
right?
I like it.
And
I
the
But
like it.
first secret will be self-love.
yeah, there.
All right. There
How
you
about a
go.
compromise?
Okay. Good. We
Okay. With
collaborated
that
and we
said,
came to it.
Yes,
we
yes.
collaborated and we created some compound intellectual interest,
There you go.
right? So, with that said, how does everybody out there in listening, viewing land get a hold of Mr. Shining Brightly, Howard Brown? We're getting ready for the big
Yes.
finish.
All right, I want you to join me. Okay, we're gonna put the shining brightly spotlight. Please join me. We're gonna shine together, and I want to shine back to you for this opportunity. Okay, to be on the show. All right, now, so
All right.
I can be reached easily. So I'm on all LinkedIn and Facebook, but shiningbrightly.com has everything you need to find out about speaking gigs for me to come and speak and just. I'd love it if you did. And then the book is on there, and then my podcast is on there. My community service and cancer are on there as well. So that's a great place to start. Is shiningbrightly.com. And what I want to say in conclusion to you is that, and this is the last line of the book. So if we can shine brightly just a little bit each day, we will make the world a better place for ourselves, for others, and our communities.
Right.
And you allowed me to shine brightly, and you're shining brightly back at me. And we need sunglasses because it's so damn bright. And I want to say that I'm grateful for our friendship and for you both, Dr. Z.
Awesome. Well, there you have it, everybody. And as always, thank you in advance.
Just thinking and growing and learning and knowing and thinking and growing and learning and knowing, yeah. Just thinking and growing and learning and knowing and thinking and growing and learning and knowing, yeah. Yeah, we're thinking and growing and learning and knowing and thinking and growing and learning and knowing, yeah. We're thinking and growing and learning and knowing and thinking and growing and learning and knowing, yeah. We're thinking and growing and learning and knowing and thinking and growing